Hi, it's Colin. Monday in the Herd. NBA playoffs are all chalk, just the way we like it. Right now, I think the Spurs are the team to beat. It's the Herd.
Dari Noka and Mel Kiper Jr. on ESPN Radio.
And ESPNRadio.com.
Mel Kiper and Dari Noka, Mel loves her hair and Dari's from Oklahoma.
Dari and Mel, ESPN Radio, ESPNRadio.com. As always, presented by Progressive Insurance. What do we have in store for you this hour? Well, this hour, I should say, half an hour from now. Your final chance for Kiper's Call to ask Mel whatever draft question you want or about your team or what they did or did not do last week. I'm not sure. We may not do this next week. This may be your last segment this year. And then we may change our minds and do some more next week, but we'll see. Todd McShay going to join us coming up 45 minutes past the hour. Yes, his draft thoughts, but apparently there's a horse race today, Mel. Look, I'm not big into the ponies. But the Preakness apparently is today. Mm-hmm. And Todd loves the horses. I did not know this. Todd loves... See, you love the cars. He loves the horses.
Well, I love the horses, too. And since 1978, when Affirmed won the Triple Crown, 13 horses have won the Derby and the Preakness, but failed to win the Belmont Stakes and win a Triple Crown. And California Chrome seems to be a horse with an opportunity. I got another key stat for you when McShay comes on as well, why California Chrome will win the Preakness today.
So you're taking California Chrome despite the sore throat or whatever it was battling.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's coming up as well. And then Kevin Weidel coming up in about 15 minutes, maybe a little less. Scouts, Inc., draft analyst, works closely with McShay. Former college quarterback, what he saw in the draft and where they're going to fit in the NFL. But anyway, let's get into the NBA Conference Finals. Eastern Conference Finals, let's start with them. Because they start tomorrow. Miami at Indiana, Game 1. 3:30 Eastern is the game. 2:30 Eastern. Coverage begins on ESPN Radio. In fact, you'll hear every single Conference Finals game and NBA Finals game right here on ESPN Radio. But Miami and Indiana, what does Indiana get from Roy Hibbert? That's obviously maybe the biggest question of all. You know, this is a team that in the last week, Mel, won 2 road games. I mean, they look very good on the road, but in between in Game 6 got clobbered, or Game 5 got clobbered at home by Washington. Didn't score more than 79 points or whatever. They hinge on Hibbert. And when you hinge on a guy who doesn't seem like he's in the right place mentally sometimes, I think that's a scary thing. It's a difficult series to predict. NBA writer Brian Windhorst says LeBron on the flip side has a little extra motivation in these playoffs.
It really bothered LeBron that he didn't win the MVP. I don't care what he says. I know him, and it bothered him. And he was like, wait a minute, I'm playing without Dwayne Wade for 30 games, and I'm carrying my team. So I think it did rub him raw a little bit. But the Heat had this beautiful, wonderful cushion, which is known as the Eastern Conference. And they knew that they didn't have to push their guys, and they could still get a top seed. And they ended up doing that.
Mel, as we talked about if we had to put everything we own on one team, we had to coming into the playoffs, you would have had it on the Thunder, and I know maybe that's changed a little bit. I would have put it on the Heat, and I would stay that way. And they're the Vegas favorite. It's tough to pick against Miami, to me, here in this series.
Yeah, they're close to a 4-1 favorite over Indiana. And you think about Indiana, and a guy we didn't highlight, Dari, really 2 players. That when we did our 3 most important guys in the playoffs earlier in the show, we didn't talk about Paul George. Paul George remains a very streaky shooter. The last 2 games against Washington, 9 of 26. That's what he did. He hit 9 of 26 shots. He needs to be much more efficient and consistent shooting the ball against the Heat if they're going to win. And for Miami, what stood out about Mario Chalmers in the playoffs, assists, 37, turnovers, 10. That's a heck of an assist-turnover ratio. Up and down during the 4 games in which these 2 teams faced off in the regular season. So when you're up and down there, yet you're coming off a great series, how does Chalmers play? If he's a little more even than uneven, as he was during the regular season, if he levels that off, And George is still inconsistent and streaky. And Hibbert's up and down. One game he gives you offense, next game he gives you nothing. What's the formula for Indiana? LeBron, as Brian Windor said, heavily motivated, highly motivated. Bosch has been solid. Wade's been very efficient offensively. I'd like to see Bosch do a little bit better job on the boards, but overall pretty good. How does Indiana win this series, Dari? How do they do it?
Mel, I think it's you're right about Paul George. Got to have consistency from him. But Roy Hibbert is when we did our 3 most important players in these NBA playoffs right now from here out, we both had him one for a reason. Mm-hmm. If Hibbert goes in against a team that is not big, that does not have the interior presence even close of probably the top 10 teams in the NBA, if he is if he gives them 20 and 10, they win. I think they win. I think it does hinge that much on him. He can control the glass. He can control the rim. He can control the ability for Wade and LeBron James to drive to the basket and create points in the paint. He can do all of that. If he wants to do that, he can do that. He's that good. If he does that, if Roy Hibbert at his peak is a 10, Mel, I think they win the series if he's 8.5 or better. I do.
You remember when Oklahoma City was playing Memphis and you were scared to death of Memphis?
Absolutely.
And you were right to be scared. I mean, I thought it would be a little easier. It wasn't. But you were the matchups. And everything in sports is about matchups.
Right.
And you might be rolling, but this team might be a little off. Yeah, they should dominate. No, look at the matchups. Matchups dictate who does what. These two teams, they split the regular season games 2-2, right? Yeah. Both games were won on the team's home court. So home court, they got there, they hold serve, right? You think about if I'm a Miami Heat fan, I'm going for my 3rd title in a row. I'm a little scared of Indiana. Number one, I don't think they have anything to lose here. I mean, they've come out and most people wrote them off. Okay, they said they're gone. They're never going to get what they were, what they were predicted to be. And here they are. Hibbert has been revived a little bit. He's coming through a little bit more than he was. He was doing nothing. Now he's at least giving you something. It's not every night, but he's got the potential in this series to be a vital, key, I won't say dominant, but a vital figure. If he is, Dari, on a game-to-game basis, and I'm a Miami Heat fan, I'm scared to death. I'm like you were with Oklahoma City against Memphis. Mm-hmm. But the word trust comes in. Do you trust this team? Do you trust Hibbert to give you that? That's why Miami is close to a 4-1 favorite out in Vegas.
Yeah. No, and I don't know if I do. We talked about what's our level of confidence that Hibbert's going to be the Hibbert at his best. You said, 3 or 3, 4? We both had 3, 4, 5 range out of 10. That's not a lot of confidence there. Okay, so that's the Eastern Conference Finals. Dorian Mel, ESPN Radio, brought to you by Barbasol Shaving Cream, America's leader for a close, comfortable shave. Close Shave America, Close Shave Barbasol. That's the East. In the West, Thunder Spurs. Also 1-2. Spurs have home court advantage. They went 0-4 against the Thunder, though, in the regular season. No Serge Ibaka for Oklahoma City. A calf injury, likely out for the entire postseason. Hello, Steven Adams and Nick Collison. How do you fill some of that void that will be left by Serge Ibaka? Mark Stein, ESPN NBA insider, says, this is a big loss for OKC.
This is, not just a day-to-day injury. They know they've lost Ibaka for the playoffs. It's the second postseason in a row that the Thunder have suffered a major injury. And remember, this is the team that has given San Antonio fits, really, for the last few seasons.
Yeah, this is Collison, it's Adams, it's Perry Jones. I mean, the impact here, Mel, I don't think it's necessary. Yes, it's defensively. I think that it can be minimized defensively. I think Steven Adams is a very good defender. But offensively, the last 2-3 years, Serge has developed a 15, 17-foot jump shot that he never had before. That's not something Collison can give you. That's not something, Collison a little. That's not something Adams can give you at all. Offensively, this is away from the basket. Offensively, I think that's where the impact of no Serge Ibaka will be most felt.
Yeah, and I would agree with you. And I think when you look at Tim Duncan, you think about Tim Duncan performed well against the Thunder in the regular season. And now with Ibaka injured, you would expect him to be even better in this series. Kawhi Leonard, he really stepped up against Portland. He did it on the offensive end. He averaged 17 a game. He did it on the defensive end, rebounding and steals. They need him to have a big series against OKC, and he's a talented two-way player. For the Thunder, Reggie Jackson, you talked about him earlier in the show, Dari, capable of giving them instant offense off the bench. He did a good job against the Spurs in the regular season. So if you're looking for other guys that are key, Reggie Jackson for OKC, Kawhi Leonard, obviously tremendously impactful for San Antonio on both ends. And then Tim Duncan. Without Ibaka, you would expect Tim Duncan to even do better. So all those players, I mean, you could go 7, 8, 9 deep in terms of players that are keys to who wins these series, both series. So to me, I don't know. With Parker and the hamstring issue, Ibaka out, where do you go? I mean, where do you go picking this game, this series? I have no idea who to pick in this series for that reason. What performance is Parker going to give you? Without Ibaka, how does OKC respond? You're guessing, Dark.
Well,
how the heck do you know?
Yeah, they're going to need to find a third scorer because that was Serge. And now I think you're going to see more Reggie Jackson on the floor with Russell Westbrook than we've seen yet. It's going to be less Thabo Sefolosha, more Reggie Jackson. Russ, and Kevin Durant have to be the three guys. And I don't know that we're going to see Reggie start, but I think that he's going to get a ton of minutes. They're going to be critical minutes, and they have to hope that he produces, that he's going to run the point, and Westbrook at the 2 a lot of the series. I think that's what it's going to have to be. You know what, too? Last segment of the show is 11:45 Eastern. That's when we're going to have Todd McShay, but we're going to make sure we leave some time because you and I are going to predict these 2 series and who wins and how many games. So we've got to come up with this because I'm as lost as you are, at least on that Thunder-Spurs series. Straight ahead, though, draft is in the books. Now, how do these players, and quarterbacks specifically a little bit, fit with the teams that drafted them, and who is our man Kevin Weidel from Scouts Inc. looking at for next year? You gave us your top 5 for next year. We're going to get his top guys for next year as well. All that straight ahead as Kevin Weidel joins me in our Charlotte studio. Dari and Mel, ESPN Radio.
Hey, it's Greeny.
Dari and Mel, ESPN Radio, ESPNradio.com. Dari Noka, Mel Kiper reminding you, treat your taste buds at Subway with a fresh toasted chicken bacon ranch melt. Subway, eat fresh. Of course, the NFL draft is in the books, but plenty of chatter coming on the back end of it. And one man who follows these guys so closely in college and the transition to the NFL is Kevin Weidel of ESPN Scouts Inc., draft analyst, and he joins me here in our Charlotte studio. And, Kevin, you look at, maybe the first round there. Was there one pick or 2 picks that surprised you in terms of where they went, in terms of fit, in terms of where they were taken? I mean, what jumped out at you?
Well, there's a couple. In terms of kind of head scratchers, I thought Anthony Barr at 9 was a little bit early for me. I saw a guy that's a better athlete than football player right now. Jawan James at 19 of the Dolphins. I see the feet. He's got one of the better sets of feet of all the tackles in this class. But to me, he just needed to get stronger, become a little bit better of a finisher. And Dominic Easley in the first round in New England. I get it. The first 3 games of the season, this guy was dominant. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, he's an undersized defensive tackle. He's coming off his second ACL injury. And the Patriots, they already have 2 defensive tackles, and Vince Wilfork and Kelly coming off major injuries themselves. And they've been burnt by a durability of former draft picks. Rob Gronkowski, who, is absolutely great when he's on the field, but has been a nightmare the past 2 years. And then even Razai Dowling at 2011, the 33rd overall pick, the corner out of Virginia, never panned out due to durability. So I just thought easily, I thought you could have got better value in the second round for him.
Kevin, when you look beyond the top 10 in the first 10 picks of round 1, give me the player that Kevin Weidel thinks is the best value, best pick, however you want to go with that, Kev.
All right, I'm going to say Aaron Donald at 13. I thought he was one of the top 8 players going to the Rams there. They sat back, did a great job getting value there. I thought HaHa Clinton Dix at 21 to Green Bay was an outstanding selection. I thought he was the best safety in this class in terms of overall safety. Can do it in coverage, steady and run support. Had one of the best sets of instincts I've ever evaluated on a safety prospect. And then I thought Minnesota for, the questions with Barr at 9, coming back up into that first round at 32 and getting a guy like Teddy Bridgewater at that point. Great value. And then you get that 5th-year option with him. I thought that was an excellent pick as well.
Let's go. Kevin Weidel, Scouts Inc. in studio with us here. Dari Noka, Mel Kiper, ESPN Radio. At the quarterback spot, you were a quarterback. You played quarterback. You watch these guys very closely. Blake Bortles goes 3 to Jacksonville. Johnny Manziel, 22 to Cleveland. Teddy Bridgewater, 32 to Minnesota. Is there one of these more than the others that you look at and say, Heck, even if you want to go Derek Carr to Oakland, wherever you want to go with the quarterback, Garoppolo, doesn't matter, where you say, man, oh, man, that is a perfect fit and sets up for relatively quick success there.
Well, I personally like Blake Bortles at Jacksonville. I think when you go back to 2 years, what David Caldwell has done with this roster, I think he's really upgraded the talent there. But you got a guy like him coming in who I believe in doesn't have to play early on. But you get a guy like Marquise Lee in the second round, a wide receiver out of USC, Allen Robinson, a wide receiver out of Penn State, and then you even sign a guy like Damian Copeland as a free agent out of Louisville. I think they did a great job of bringing Bortles in. They have the ability not to play him right away with Chad Henne, but they also got young weapons to grow with. So to me, I think Blake Bortles is in an ideal situation. And another guy I really like it going to the day 3 range. I thought the Houston Texans taking Tom Savage. They are set up with, I think, a great roster. They don't, if he doesn't have to play right away, but if he does have to play, they don't have to ask him to do too much. You have a running game, you have weapons, and you're starting to build a very strong front seven.
Kevin, which team, when we're talking about December, which team's going to make a run to get into the playoffs, or they're in the playoff hunt? They could maybe do a little damage. We would look back at this draft and say the draft is the reason why they're in this position. What team could you say that about, or will you be saying that about?
Well, I think you're looking at the Houston Texans, Mel. 20, just going with them, 2-14 last year. But you look at what they did in the draft. Obviously they showed great discipline to get Jadeveon Clowney, I thought, out of South Carolina with the number 1 overall pick, which is easier said than done because you can always, talk yourself out of it. They took the best player in the draft. And then they didn't reach for a quarterback in the second round, which I really liked with the first pick. They took the guard, Xavier Su'a-Filo, who I think solidifies up front. I think he's a plug-and-play starter. They got a great value in Louis Nix, I thought, in the late third. Plug there at the nose tackle position. We talked about Savage. And then getting a guy like Jeffrey Pagan out of Alabama in the 6th round, you just add more size and strength up there up front. And keep an eye out for Alfred Blue, a running back out of LSU. I liked his tape, and they got him in the 6th round. Kind of a sleeper type, had some durability issues, but this guy's got size. He didn't get a lot of playing time at a loaded backfield down there in Baton Rouge. But he's a guy that's got size. I thought great lateral quickness, and he finishes strong. So, to me, I thought they really improved their roster. They already had a strong roster. I think if they can get just steady quarterback play, I think they have a chance to compete and get back into the playoffs this year.
Scout Sings, Kevin Weidel in studio here, Darian Mel, ESPN Radio. Okay, real quick. Mel gave us his top guys for next year's draft. I know that last week you started already looking and coming up with a little bit of a list. Give us your top 3 or 4 or 5, however you want to go here. In about 45 seconds from next year, what you're looking at in that draft.
Okay, at number 5, I got Amari Cooper out of Alabama, very polished, savvy receiver. 4, Cedric Ogbuehi out of Texas A&M, offensive tackle, played guard, went to right tackle last year, going to switch over to left this year. Dante Fowler, defensive end out of Florida. This guy's powerful, explosive, the defensive end out of Florida. Stanford offensive tackle, Andrews Pete. Needs to work on a little bit more patience in the set, but he's got length, he's got athleticism at number 2, and then number 1, Jameis Winston out of Florida State. Size, mobility, needs to continue to mature off the field, but he's got all the talent on the field when you watch the tape.
Mel, you guys were right there, too. Mel obviously had Winston 1. He had Amari Cooper at 3. You didn't mention Andres Pete. It's interesting. He's a third-year guy, right? He will have started all 3 years. Did he start as a freshman?
I think he subbed in a little bit first year, yep.
So 2 years started there for that.
The guy I went with was Brandon Scherf. I had Brandon Scherf in there. I had Leonard Williams from USC, and I had Randy Gregory in there at number 5, Ken. What do you think of the Nebraska Cornhusker, who's an outstanding athlete and a great pass rusher?
No, I got to be honest. I haven't gotten to his tape yet. I hear a lot of good things. We'll be able to check it out this summer. I'll be able to get back to you on that. But honestly, I haven't watched one down of him.
There you go.
Like what you see, Kev.
I can't wait. I trust you, Mel.
Kevin Weidel rocking the Pirates T-shirt. He's a Pittsburgh. Oh, what's wrong with the Buccos?
They're struggling this year. We don't have the pitching we had, and we can't. No runs. We can't hit. Mel, your team's in first, though.
Yeah, he is.
I know, Kev. We're
living the high life.
First.
He's well aware of it. He's well aware that they are ahead of the hated New York Yankees there at first by a game. All right, Kev, good stuff, buddy. Thanks for coming by.
No problem.
All right, straight ahead. Kuiper's callers, your draft questions for Mel. What they did, what they didn't do, what they should have done, why they didn't do it. 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. This is Darian Mel, ESPN Radio. Darian Mel, ESPN Radio, ESPNRadio.com. Great to have you with us, taking you to the top of the hour, running you right into the Ian Fitzsimmons Show on ESPN Radio. Todd McShay going to join us about 13 minutes from now. But right now, it is indeed time for Kuiper's Callers. And not only do you get Mel, but we didn't let Kevin Weidel leave yet. No, Scouts Inc. Kevin Weidel, he's hanging out with us. He's going to jump on and answer some of these as well. So with that, we roll right into it. Kuiper's Callers, we fired up in Ohio, and Carl. Hey, Carl.
Good morning, guys. Hey, listen, I own one share of Green Bay Packers stock, so please evaluate how my employee Ted Thompson did in the draft overall, and what do you think about the undrafted free agent outside linebacker they got from Alabama? Thanks.
Kev, I'll start out. I like what they did. I thought they, from top to bottom, you think about starting out with HaHa Clinton-Dix, Devontae Adams, they did a good job there. And then in the second round, getting him. Thornton's a big body. I like the Bradford pick a lot. You talked about Adrian Hubbard, the outside linebacker, an underachiever but talented. Amazing he came as a junior and to go undrafted, as a lot of these kids did. But Adrian Hubbard they brought in as an undrafted guy. You think about some of the other kids they were able to bring in. Neal from Tennessee, the running back. You think about Sims, the running back from Kansas. Autry, the defensive end from Mississippi State. So there's some interesting undrafted guys. But I thought they did, Kevin, outside of the Richard Rodgers, the tight end from Cal, Reach. I thought Berderis and Janice late, Goodson late. I thought from top to bottom a pretty good draft.
Yeah, I thought it was solid as well. And the Rodgers pick in the third, Mel, remember, they also just brought in Colt Lyerla. So, you know, you have a guy that's really talented, maybe a first-round talent, but a nightmare off the field. If he works out good, if he slips up, see you later. So that's a little bit of insurance. And then I thought Kyrie Thornton, I think the defensive tackle of the Southern Miss, I think this guy's really got a chance to be a starter. Needs to continue to grow and mature a little bit, but this guy is a thick, powerful individual that really is a guy that can eat up some space on the inside.
Let's go Las Vegas. Marty, you're on ESPN Radio. Good morning.
Good morning, guys. How are you? Listen, the Patriots have been controlling the AFC East. Is there anyone who's getting in a position where that division can become a little competitive? Did anyone improve enough this year to start competing with New England, or has New England stepped back at all? What do you think about the AFC East?
Yeah, this is my feeling, and Daria and I talk. It's Tom Brady. Tom Brady carries this team on his shoulders, and you think about their draft. I like Stork in the fourth round. I thought that made sense. Fleming in the fourth, Jalapeno in the sixth. But you think about easily early, getting the heir apparent to Brady and Garoppolo. So you're not helping your team that much early, unless Easley is better than we think coming off the injuries. I think the Jets, if the quarterback position is at least decent, maybe the Jets can challenge. Miami, if they've done enough to help Tannehill, if James or Turner or Landry and Hazel help that offense, which they should, then maybe they make some strides. But still, as long as Brady's the quarterback, 2 words, good luck.
Yeah, that's me. As I agree with you, Mel. I think the Jets are the one team, like you talked about. I like how they added Calvin Pryor. I think he's a good fit within that Rex Ryan defense. And then getting Geno Smith some weapons. Eric Decker, they signed in free agency, but a tight end like Jason Morrow, big kid, athletic, really good in the passing game, get down the field. Jalen Saunders provides some stuff on the inside from the slot, and it can also provide some explosiveness in the return game. So to me, I think the New York Jets are the closest ones behind New England at this point.
Morrow, of course, out of Texas Tech. Saunders from Oklahoma. How about Nick in South Carolina? Good morning, Nick.
Hey, how you guys doing? My question is, I'm a big Browns fan, and I really want to talk about Johnny Manziel, and rightfully so, but I really like what they did for our defense, and I wanted to get Melvin and the other guys' take on Pierre Desir and Justin Gilbert and some of the other guys we added to our defense, hopefully compete with the other teams in the AFC North. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, Gilbert to me is a big play cover guy. I want him to be more aggressive and more consistent tackling, because you got to tackle well after the bubble screens and all those short passes, and he'll struggle some in that area. That's the only thing that bothers me with Gilbert. Manziel at 22, whether you believe in him or you don't, they needed some energy and excitement brought in, and at 22, I don't think you can argue. Batonio is that tough guy, will help them. Kirksey, I thought it was a little early, but I liked some of the things he did as a complete linebacker, helping out in coverage. West is my guy at Towson, but I thought that might have been a little high. To me, Desir's a real good fourth. I liked a lot of what they did, and I want to ask you, Kevin Weidel, did you see any receiver at any point that they could have taken over somebody else that would have given them maybe a weapon for Manziel or Hoyer in the passing game?
I thought maybe a guy like Marquise Lee sitting there in the beginning of the top of the second round over Joel Bitonio. I like Bitonio a lot, but I think you're giving you'd be giving Manziel another target, Marquise Lee, and good value at the top of that second round. So that'd be the guy, Mel, that sticks out to me.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's stay in South Carolina here. Darian Mel, ESPN Radio, Kevin Weidel, Scouts Inc. in with us, and Will in South Carolina. Good morning.
Hey, so thanks for taking the call. I was wondering what you think the Broncos are going to do with their Mike linebacker situation after they didn't address it in the draft after all the mocks were saying they most likely would.
Well, Borland was the one that I thought, he dropped until the third round, and I thought that was a real good pick for the 49ers. I think you look at their situation right now, that's an issue. You got Chaney, Trevathan. I mean, you got guys that are in the mix at linebacker, but to say it's a strong position right now, obviously Miller's a key. You got Irving. That's a position, Kevin, I look at, and I say, could they have gone that route, or should they have gone that route? You could say, maybe they could have. They certainly had some opportunities to do so. Now, in terms of free agency, Barrett from Colorado State was brought in, but in terms of the inside linebacker spot, should Borland have been more in the discussion at some point?
Yeah, Borland could have been in there. It wasn't a deep inside linebacker class, Mel. You had Mosley, C.J. Mosley out of Alabama at the top. Other guys, Preston Brown at Louisville, could have been in the mix. And, maybe they should have taken another Kentucky linebacker, Avery Williams, an inside guy. They've hit on those guys with Trevathan and Wood and Wesley Woodyard in the past. So I think it was just a very shallow, I would say, inside linebacker class, and tough to get one in this year.
All right, let's go to Memphis, Tennessee now. And Alex, you're on ESPN Radio.
Hi, guys. Thanks for taking my call. I gave the Chiefs a B- on the draft with the exception of not drafting a wide receiver. Are there any undrafted free agents or free agents wide receivers that they're looking at right now? Thanks for taking my call.
Yeah, in terms of the Chiefs, I mean, that was the whole thing. They were one of the teams, along with Cleveland, that you said, boy, a wide receiver looked like a major priority. They brought in Albert Wilson from Georgia State, undrafted. He was the key guy at that position, that was undrafted. That looked like maybe a late-round pick, priority guy. But other than that, not much else. And DeAnthony Thomas is the guy, Kevin. The way he will be utilized, like McClusker, that all-purpose situational dynamo, maybe he gives them an element that they need other than just say, hey, we didn't get a receiver, but we got a guy like the Anthony Thomas.
Yeah, Thomas just needs to stay healthy, Mel. With Wilson, it's interesting. You watch his tape, kind of built like a running back. This guy's explosive, very raw, but a lot of upside. Reminds me a little bit of a young kind of Josh Cribbs type, a guy who can create after the catch and really provide some strength at running the football after the catch.
All right, guys, let's bang out one more here real quick. Joe in Panama City, Florida. You're on ESPN Radio. Good morning.
Good morning. Hey there, Dari, Mel, and Kevin. Did James Robert Jr. ever get picked up by anybody, and what are his chances of making the roster? Thanks.
I missed who he mentioned. Who was the player's name again?
James Earl Watt? I didn't hear it either.
I didn't hear the name to be able to comment on it.
I'm not sure if we still have Joe. May have missed it. Did not understand it. So, Joe, sorry about that. We did not understand it. Couldn't, obviously cannot answer. But all in all, 30 callers today. And, oh, my goodness. I tell you what, I think we could do this every week, except Mel takes about 48 weeks off, so we can't. But otherwise we could. All right, Kevin, now you're free to go, bud. Thank you.
Got it. Appreciate it, guys.
Great job, Kevin. See you, pal.
All right, Mel, hey, you riding off in the sunset after next week's show, huh?
I think for a little bit, Kevin. I don't think people want to hear my Major League Baseball opinions through the summer. I'll take a little break.
Goodness gracious. Your team's still in first place. They may. It might be entertaining. So Kevin is out. Coming up, how about Todd McShay? We'll get a little bit more post-draft reaction from Todd, who is also a horse racing enthusiast. I had no idea. There's the Preakness today. I wonder if he can tell us about sore throats in the horsies. We'll talk to Todd McShay straight ahead. Dari, Mel, and Kevin saying goodbye at ESPN Radio. Darian Mel, ESPN Radio, ESPNRadio.com. My goodness, Mel, have we done some draft talk or have we done some draft talk?
I think we put a little period at the end of the 2014 NFL draft. I think
and
we
got a little bit into 2015.
Yeah, a lot into 2015, and we covered a lot of names, and we'll do so next week as well, because the next year's draft, if the amount of underclassmen, 102 underclassmen came out, some of which made big mistakes by coming out, and hopefully that won't be the case this coming year. But this draft coming up is going to be quarterback heavy at the top with Winston and Petty and Hundley and Mariota and maybe some others that are going to be in that mix as well. So it should be a very exciting draft again next year.
And in a year where we saw running back not taken until Bishop Sankey at, 55, off air in the studio here, Kevin White was telling me, boy, like the running back class, when you look at, the two Georgia guys alone, Gurley and Marshall, let alone Melvin Gordon at Wisconsin, Mike Davis at South Carolina, like the list of running backs that are there could be fantastic. But again, you get into a philosophy now, how high do you take a running back?
Yeah. And Abdullah at Nebraska, Langford at Michigan State really came on. But Gurley's the one. I think Gurley and Gordon, and Melvin Gordon III, they're the two that you really focus on because, we haven't had one now. It's been going on 3 years. But I think Gurley from Georgia certainly could be in the mix to be a first-round draft choice.
Now, we remind you to tune in to Major League Baseball today on ESPN Radio as Derek Jeter in his final season and the rest of the Yankees take on the Pittsburgh Pirates. Coverage begins at 3 Eastern on ESPN Radio, ESPNRadio.com, and the ESPN Radio app. And then tomorrow night, Sunday Night Baseball featuring the Tigers and the Red Sox. So all of that Major League Baseball coming your way on ESPN Radio. Todd McShay expected to join us, but we don't have him with us yet. In the meantime, Mel, maybe this would be a good time for us to lay it all on the line, for me to lose yet another head-to-head competition with you.
Oh, boy.
Because we need to get into the NBA Eastern and Western Conference Finals. And who wins them? And in how many games? With the injury to Serge Ibaka, we don't know what Tony Parker is in terms of that hamstring. We don't know what Roy Hibbert is upstairs, how mentally ready he is to take over potentially the interior, which I think he could do against Miami. This is, you talk about wild card. I mean, this could be any of 4 NBA Finals matchups, and none of them would surprise me. None of them would surprise me. But that said, why don't we start Eastern Conference Finals? Pacers hosting Miami. Biggest thing you're looking for, who wins, how many games. Hey, you're going to be on vacation when this thing ends. Don't worry, we won't call you out if you're wrong. So now you can really lay it all on the line.
And you'll be forgotten by the time I come back in August. I hear you, pal. I'm going to take Miami. I just don't have any confidence that Indiana can be consistent. Love some of their talent. Love the fact that they're here when people thought, hey, they were playing. There's no way they're getting into this situation. So Miami's got a lot to be concerned about. The matchups favor Indiana if Hibbert's playing at a high level. I think it goes 6 games. I'm going to say Miami. Yeah, they're just too good. We know what you're going to get from Miami every night. You don't know with Indiana. I'll say Miami in 6.
Mel, we're on the same page. I said before the playoffs started, if I had to put everything I own on one team, I would be very uncomfortable doing it. But if I had to, it would be Miami. And I'm not going to change that now. The unknown of Indiana is huge. Wouldn't surprise me if they win. If they win, it's because Hibbert was great. But that's hard to count on. I agree with you. I will also take Miami in 6. Now you get into the Western Finals. Oklahoma City, San Antonio. Thunder won all 4 matchups this season. They've dominated San Antonio of late. But I still get a very uneasy feeling, especially now with Serge Ibaka out for it looks like the entire remainder of the postseason for the Thunder with a calf injury. Steven Adams, Nick Collison, maybe a little Perry Jones. How are they going to substitute for Serge? Big question mark there. So now, who do you like and in how many games?
Well, Tony Parker's injury concern as well with San Antonio with that strained hamstring. I had said back before the playoffs began, what did I say? I thought Oklahoma City, this was the Thunder's year to win it. Yeah. And again, last year with Westbrook, now with Ibaka. I boxed myself into a corner by making that statement. And I'm not like Dari Noka. I don't get off teams I predict. We're looking at the draft. You're unbelievable. You were taking Brooklyn in 7. Brooklyn plays in the 7th game. I'm going to go with Toronto. I don't get your thought, how you think about these things.
Neither
how
do
your
I.
mind works on this. I can't predict what you're going to do, but stick with who you picked. Okay? It's something I think. Just stick with who you chose in the beginning.
But. Now, in that case, I had no excuse. All right, that was stupid, and I blame myself for that stupidity. In this case, Mel, when you, before the playoffs start, pick a team as it is constructed, and then you come into a situation where that team is no longer constructed the same. You pick the Thunder healthy. Now you get the Thunder not healthy without a major part of that team.
Yep.
It's not the same Thunder team you picked. So nobody would blame you if you changed.
I'm loyal to a fault. I will say that. The thing that prevents me from saying definitively San Antonio and getting off the Thunder and saying agreeing with what you're saying, hey, they don't have Ibaka. I think Ibaka's huge. Just look at what he does offensively and defensively. I think, and overall as a player. But if Parker's 100%, it's easy. I'm switching to San Antonio. I'm not going to be loyal. Okay, I'm going to say, hey, I can't stay with the Thunder. But what does Parker's injury mean? How much of a factor is that? What do you even concern yourself with that?
I mean, a little bit if I'm the Spurs, only because I think that if I'm San Antonio, we're going to see a lot of Reggie Jackson and Russell Westbrook on the floor at the same time. Tony's going to have to defend one of them, and those are two of the quicker there's not a guard in the NBA that's faster than Westbrook, and Reggie's not much slower, and he's quick. They can both get to the basket. So now I'm asking Tony, with a hamstring that's not 100%, to defend as athletic a guard as you have in the NBA, that's where I would be a little bit concerned. Could he aggravate it again? Could one move, one blow-by, end up costing him the rest of the series? That's where my concern would be.
I think this series goes 7. I think it's a 7-game series. I might be wrong because obviously, when you don't have Ibaka, you're in a little bit of trouble potentially. I just think it's extended to 7 games. And I'm going to go with San Antonio. I just can't get away from the Ibaka injury. I think that's huge. I think I'm not going to count the Thunder out. I really wanted to pick the Thunder, and I would have picked the Thunder. It would have been automatic if Ibaka wasn't injured. But I'm going to say the Spurs in 7. I'll switch. I'll probably do like Dari Noken, say what an idiot I am. I had the Thunder winning it all. But that injury is big, and I can't overlook it.
Did I talk you into it being okay to jump ship? Did I have anything to do with that?
It rubbed off on me. I've criticized you in the past for doing it time and time again, and I don't remember when it's ever worked for you. Now I'm doing something that's never worked for you, but yeah. I have a reason to do it because let's face facts. This is not a minor entity. This is a key player. We were all worried about Wade. We were worried about he's one of the big 3.
Yeah.
And I can't. And San Antonio is a heck of a basketball team. Now it makes Duncan. He should be that much better because of Ibaka. I just can't. I'm not going to sit here and say, I'm picking the Thunder regardless. I think it goes 7. I think they extend the series to 7, and they give the Spurs a lot to worry about, and they battle them hard. But I'm going to take San Antonio just because of the Ibaka injury.
It is going to go 7. But I am not jumping. I am a Thunder guy, and I'm staying with him. And here's why the Ibaka injury will not kill him. The defensive presence from Ibaka can be made up to a degree by Steven Adams and Nick Collison together. The offensive punch will not be made up by those two, but by Reggie Jackson, who we are going to see a lot of, and we need to. In the end, Reggie becomes the number 3 scoring threat, which he's been in many games anyway. They can win on the road. It will go 7. It will finish in San Antonio, and they will close them out in San Antonio like they closed out the Clippers in Los Angeles. I'll take the Thunder in 7. So we agree on the Heat. You got the Spurs. I got the Thunder. That'll do it for this. We'll do this again next week. Straight ahead, the Ian Fitzsimmons Show. He'll have on Arizona Cardinal head coach Bruce Arians, ESPN Radio.